It looks peaceful, a mirror of sky framed by pine and stone, the kind of place families photograph and post with captions about stillness. But stillness here is a lie. In 2016, a man named Colin Scott stepped a few feet off the boardwalk to test the temperature of a pool near Yellowstone Lake. Within hours, his body had vanished. Not drowned, not burned, dissolved. By the time rescuers arrived, there was nothing left to recover, just empty boots on the thermal crust. That's why the boardwalks exist. They aren't there to guide you. They're there because the moment you cross that line, how long do you think you'd last? 10 seconds. Try 2. The air smells wrong here, sulfur and minerals, like the Earth's exhalation. Stand still and you can hear it. Water hissing through cracks in stone, the sound of something trying to escape. Beneath the calm surface of Yellowstone Lake, hydrothermal vents in the Mary Bay and West Thumb Basin pulse with water hot enough to strip flesh from bone in seconds. The lake doesn't give warnings. It erases. Under immense pressure, that water remains liquid even past 400 degrees Fahrenheit. A silent trap, invisible until it's too late. Those families taking photos? They're standing on a planetary pressure valve, smiling for the camera. For 30 years, Dr. Lisa Morgan has mapped the lake bed's subtle movements. In the past decade, she's watched it rise 11 feet, not from sediment, but from pressure. A blister of magma and superheated water, kilometers wide, swelling beneath the lake. The entire basin is breathing. And when something that size takes a breath, it eventually exhales. Dr. Lisa Morgan doesn't call Yellowstone a volcano. She calls it a wound that never healed. Every few million years, North America drifts southwest, about 2.5 centimeters a year, the same rate your hair grows while you sleep. The continent moves, but the magma plume beneath it doesn't. Yellowstone is the scar left behind. A burn mark America keeps dragging itself across. Indigenous peoples called it the breathing mountain long before seismographs measured its pulse. They understood what Western science is only now confirming. Yellowstone doesn't sleep. It waits, and like all things that wait, it dreams. Beneath those forests and rivers lies a reservoir of molten rock so vast it defies comprehension. Roughly 2,500 cubic kilometers of magma, enough to fill Lake Superior twice. Below that, a second reservoir, nearly 30 miles deep, extends into the mantle. Larger still, Yellowstone doesn't erupt cleanly. It fails, over and over again. A failed eruption isn't mercy, it's rehearsal. Magma surges upward, strain mounts, the ground swells, and then nothing. The system vents instead, through geysers and fumaroles, releasing only a fraction of what builds below. The energy doesn't vanish. It redistributes, fracturing bedrock, superheating groundwater, carving new pathways through weakened stone. Every failure leaves the crust thinner, more fractured, more ready. Think about it. You're not visiting a volcano. You're standing on a wound the Earth keeps reopening every time the continent moves. And it's due. Dr. Morgan's records show those pauses between uplifts are measured in decades now, not millennia. She points to seismographs pinned to her office wall. The oldest, from 1994, is almost flat, a resting pulse. The newest shows hundreds of microquakes per week, rising from depths that rarely trembled before. Morgan has monitored Yellowstone for 3 decades. She no longer asks if it will erupt, only when. And when the strain builds faster than the crust can stretch, the dream doesn't end. It wakes. And what wakes with it has been waiting far longer than humans have existed. But destruction is only half of Yellowstone's story. The other half has been writing itself for billions of years. In microscopic code, we're only beginning to read. We imagine life needs sunlight, air, and calm. But here, that rule means nothing. Boiling acid, choking gas, water hot enough to melt bone. And yet, life not only survives, it rushes in. When eruptions tear new vents open, superheated water floods fresh ground. Other microbes die. These ones move in fast. Catastrophe isn't a threat here. It's a birth announcement. Step close to a vent, and you'll see them. Orange mats rippling like skin, green films shimmering in poison water. They don't drink sunlight. They feed on Earth's chemical breath. Each pool a tiny universe. Organisms rewriting the rules of what life even is. Among them, Thermus aquaticus, a microbe that needs boiling water just to exist. Its enzymes, harvested decades ago, became the key that unlocked our own code. A creature born in fire became the silent engine of modern genetics. Dr. Morgan keeps a vial of that culture on her desk, a reminder that what she studies isn't just destruction. It's what grows in destruction's wake. When the eruption comes, she says, These will be the first to reclaim the ash. For 3 billion years, long before animals existed, extremophiles like these perfected survival, not by avoiding death, but by making it irrelevant. NASA studies them for a reason. If life here thrives on chemical energy from Earth's core, then Europa's hidden ocean, warmed by tidal friction, starred of light, might do the same. Yellowstone isn't just a model for alien worlds. It is an alien world under our feet, and it raises the question, if you discovered this organism, knowing it would outlive everything you've ever known, what would you call it? They'll adapt again, as they have through every mass extinction before us. We're not the inheritors of this planet. We're the intermission. And as Dr. Morgan's instruments hum in the dark, they record both signals, the tremor of magma and the pulse of life that beats in rhythm with it. Dr. Lisa Morgan has spent 3 decades listening to a volcano that never stopped speaking. Her office hums with quiet tension. Seismographs flicker across dim monitors. GPS satellites track millimeter shifts in position, and gas sensors pull invisible air from vents miles apart. The faint smell of sulfur hangs over coffee rings, staining seismograph printouts. Every line on her screen is a heartbeat from below. 4 years now, the caldera floor has been rising and falling like a slow tide. Between 2004 and 2008, it lifted 7 centimeters, enough to shift entire meadows upward. The movement is small, almost invisible, but relentless. Sometimes the signals come as seismic swarms, hundreds of tiny earthquakes in a single week, shallow and fast, as if something deep below is rearranging itself. Other times, they appear in gas chemistry. The ratio of helium isotopes changes when magma rises from exceptional depth, when a core itself begins to leak upward. And then there are the sudden ones, hydrothermal explosions that don't wait for buildup. They're not eruptions, they're steam bombs. In 2017, one such blast tore open a vent in Yellowstone's backcountry, leaving a crater the size of a house. No one died, but the message was clear. Not all dangers here come slow. Morgan studies every pulse, every shift in gas, every inch of rising ground. She calls them the whispers, tiny patterns that might spell a language of pressure and time. When the readings change too fast, she stops moving, then says quietly, every signal could be a rehearsal. Pressure, finding pathways before the real performance. It's not just theory. In 1959, the Yellowstone Lake earthquake, magnitude 7.3, struck just outside the park. It shook the land so violently that the Madison River was blocked, forming a new lake overnight. Geysers went silent. Others appeared where none had existed. The mountain was rewriting its own nervous system. And now, the same patterns hum again. Faint, rhythmic, impossible to ignore. Yellowstone speaks through frequencies too low for human ears, but strong enough to move air and bone. Visitors sometimes say they feel uneasy standing here. They're not imagining it. The ground itself is talking. If the earth could speak through these tremors and whispers, what single warning would it send to us? Because when it finally speaks louder than a whisper, no one will be close enough to listen. 24 hours warning. 8 million people in the ashfall zone. Every highway becomes a parking lot. Every airport, overwhelmed. Where does an entire region evacuate to when every neighboring state is already in the path? Then, it begins. A fracture opens in the crust. A pulse of magma forcing its way upward, faster than warning systems can register. Deeper source than any volcano currently monitored. The first explosion doesn't look like the end of the world. It's a white column, rising straight into the sky like steam. But this column isn't steam. It's a pyroclastic flow, rock and gas hugging the ground at highway speed, erasing everything within 50 kilometers. Air itself becomes weapon. Forests ignite instantly. A flash fire that turns wood to ash before flames can even form. Every vent in the caldera opens in chorus. Not a single eruption, but hundreds. A chain of detonations stretching across 50 kilometers of land. Rivers boil. Valleys vanish. The sky itself fractures. Pressure waves race outward faster than sound. The sound itself, too large to process. Pressure ruptures eardrums. What follows isn't silence, but a high, endless whine. Then comes the ash. Fine as flour, heavy enough to bury towns beneath a meter of gray. Cities hundreds of kilometers away disappear in daylight darkness. Runways vanish. Power grids fail. Water intakes clog. The fine ash climbs into the upper atmosphere. Static-charged dust blinds satellites. GPS networks flicker, then die. Drones fall. Global shipping halts. The invisible web that fed our civilization, logistics, timing, navigation, snaps. We don't die from the volcano. We die from the sudden loss of everything that made our world function. The jet stream carries the dust across continents, wrapping the northern hemisphere in shadow. In a day, crops die in the field. In a week, temperatures fall by 3 degrees. In a month, the oceans cool, and the planet enters what could become years without full summer. A volcanic winter measured not in months, but in seasons. As harvests fail and skies remain dim, the disaster shifts from geological to human. Borders close. Nations ration grain and fuel. Governments calculate sunlight hours like currency. Volcanic refugees becomes a phrase that defines an era. The worst danger isn't the ash itself, but the desperate reaction to a world that can no longer provide. Morgan watches from the Denver facility, 2 states away, as every model she ever built lights up in perfect symmetry. Prediction becomes memory in real time. She once said, "Every pulse could be a rehearsal." This is the performance. When Yellowstone exhales, it doesn't just change the weather. It rewrites the rules of living things. And as the ash circles the globe, a question lingers in the silence that follows. If Earth can erase us this completely, what makes us think we were ever anything but guests? But that eruption hasn't happened. Not yet. And as we stand here now, watching steam rise from still water, the mountain continues its slow breathing. And we stand beside it, listening, counting. Steam drifts over the lake again. The same calm surface that hides the same inferno. No explosion, no warning sirens, only the quiet pulse of water meeting air. If you came here now, you wouldn't see a wound. You'd see a mirror. But beneath that mirror, pressure rebuilds, breath by breath, exhale by exhale. Dr. Lisa Morgan stands at the boardwalk's edge, hands resting on the rail, the sensors behind her recording data she already knows by heart. Every tremor, every rise in temperature, every new bubble of gas. It's all part of the same slow rhythm. The Earth doesn't rush, she says. It just remembers. And it does. It remembers every eruption before us. Every layer of ash turned to stone. Every forest it burned and grew again. Even silence here feels alive. You can hear it in the way the ground exhales. Steam hissing through fissures like breath through stone. The mountain's slow conversation with itself. The tourists will keep coming. They'll take photos, toss pebbles, laugh at the smell of sulfur. Most won't know that beneath their feet, the crust is thinner than a skyscraper is tall, or that the lake itself sits above a chamber that contains more molten rock than all the world's lakes hold water. Morgan doesn't talk much about apocalypse anymore. She talks about patience, about listening, because the planet isn't against us or for us. It's just following its own pulse, one we keep mistaking for stillness. If you stand here long enough, you begin to feel it too, a vibration in the soles of your feet. A heartbeat that doesn't belong to you. And for a brief, impossible moment, you understand what the whispers are. Not warnings, but the mountain's native language, spoken constantly. This is what survival looks like. Not conquering the earth, but learning to live beside something that could erase us without effort. Maybe that's the lesson Yellowstone is still teaching. That forever isn't promised, but awareness is. That silence can be warning, and calm can be countdown. Because the lake still breathes. The mountain still waits. And somewhere deep below, the next whisper is already forming. A reminder that peace here is only the pause between stories.